Okay, can you all see my screen?
Mhm.
Oh, perfect. Let me just open up the chat in case we want to use the chat for today. I threw in some links in there, but welcome. I'm Miss Iglesias, and we're going to talk about Library Bill of Rights and censorship today. Okay, so are we familiar with the term the Bill of Rights?
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh, I don't have to use the chat now.
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. If you want to use the chat, you're more than welcome to. But okay, so yeah, we're kind of familiar. Do we know our Bill of Rights?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Didn't sound so confident. Does anyone else know, like off the top of your head, at least some of them?
The Library Bill of Rights or
Our
the
our
bill?
American Bill of Rights.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
It's okay.
Uh,
I feel like such a bad student.
It's okay, no worries, because we're gonna go over them. But do you at least know the idea, the purpose that they serve us for our Americans?
To protect like
yes.
our rights.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so if we didn't have rights, what would our society look like?
It'd be very controlling.
Yeah, controlling,
Chaotic.
chaotic, right? So these are better in place so that we can definitely be able to have some freedoms. So let me talk about our American Bill of Rights, our first 10 amendments. Okay, so I kind of shortened them a bit. But these are our first 10 amendments. You have our freedoms as our First Amendment, our freedom of speech, religion. Everyone pretty much knows that one. Our freedom to petition, to assemble. You have your second one, which is your right to bear arms. You have the third one for quartering our soldiers. The fourth one is about search and arrest. The fifth one is about our criminal cases, our rights in criminal cases. The sixth one is our right to a fair trial. Our seventh is our right in civil cases. Our eight is about bails, fines, and punishment. Nine is the rights to retained by the people. And of course, the 10th one is the actual states' rights. But we're going to be focused on the first one, which is our freedom of speech and press and such forth. So, our First Amendment is taken word for word from this website. Is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise of thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people, and peaceably to assemble and petition government for redress of grievances. So essentially, we have the right to say what we feel and think, right? We have the right to any religion we possibly want to practice, and we have the right to come together as long as it's peaceful. So how does this all connect to our library Bill of Rights? Well, the library also has its own guidance on how to serve the people. So we don't have 10, we have 7 in the library. Our first one is about books, and any materials we have in the library should provide some interest to everybody. All materials should have different points of view. Since we're able to practice different religions, we should also be able to see different points of views of historical issues, political issues, from male perspectives to female perspectives. And we should also, for number 3, challenge censorship. So there are times where people are like, I don't like this book. This book should be taken out. The librarian's job is to challenge that to make sure if it's should be taken out or not. Fourth is to cooperate with all people resisting free expression. So if they're trying to tell somebody else that they can't speak, that, we should cooperate and try to work with them. Our fifth one is that anyone can use a library and they should not be denied. Our sixth one is that there should be a space for exhibits or meeting places. And then seventh is everyone has the right to privacy in their library. So the one we're also focusing on is number 3 in terms of challenging censorship. Since people are saying, hey, we shouldn't have this book in the library, that tends to kind of go against our First Amendment rights. So we're going to watch this little video. And as we watch, if you have just a sheet of paper in front of you, that would be great. If you have a sticky note, if you have a notebook in front of you, whatever you got, right offhand, we're gonna watch this video. It's not too long about book banning, and because it's super prevalent today, surprisingly. So you're gonna take a note on one thing you found really interesting. And one thing that you're still kind of questioning on, and then after we watch the video, we'll share out and then we'll do a little more discussion in that. Are we ready? Okay, perfect. I also hope that you can hear this audio. I am going to make it bigger though. So, sorry, there's an ad.
Here are 4 Wix Studio features you gotta know.
Do we all hear the audio? Okay.
Gestation over issues.
3 books have in common.
Sorry.
What do these 3 books have in common? Any guesses? They are 3 of the most commonly challenged and banned books in the United States. A study by the American Library Association found that more than 1,500 books were challenged or banned by schools, libraries, and universities in 2021. Most were written by or about LGBTQIA or Black individuals. For comparison, the association noted just 273 challenges or bans in 2020. Even children's books are coming under attack.
They include a book called Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram Kendi. Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
It was a symbolic moment of just how much people like Senator Cruz is trying to distract from the real issue, or even to demonize materials and books that are actually good for children, helpful for children, allow children to be able to operate in this highly unequal and multiracial world.
Book banning in the United States is nothing new. For decades, there have been cries to remove certain books off shelves and out of the classroom. Many book banning efforts historically focused on depictions of slavery, segregation, and racism. One of the most famously banned books, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, was published in 1960.
Honors Harper Lee for her outstanding contribution to the great literary tradition of America.
It topped the list of most challenged books for years, despite earning a Pulitzer Prize, being adapted into an Oscar-winning film, and being generally regarded as one of the most important novels in a generation.
In our courts, all men are created equal.
Nowadays, the book is a mainstay in curriculums across the country, but the practice of book banning is finding new life and growing to include both classic novels and newer works.
We're in a moment of intense contestation over issues of diversity, inclusion.
Let's say you take these books out of the library. What are you going to do with them? You going to put them in the street? Light them on fire? Where are they going?
Representative Sexton.
I don't have a clue, but I would burn them.
What we're seeing is politicians tapping into people's frustration, their anxiety about these changes, and pointing to book bans as a kind of rallying cry to say, here's a way that we can push back these tides that we don't agree with.
Parents and politicians commonly cite things like profanity, political indoctrination, and sexually and racially explicit language as reasons for wanting a book to be banned.
You all are going to hear what our children are hearing in books. And don't stop me.
Public school teachers and librarians are at the forefront of this battle.
The reason certain stories, like you think Shakespeare, lasts through the centuries is because there are themes that are just timeless: love, friendship, betrayal, war, death. And so all of these themes are concurrent through the new books now that have seemed to kind of garner the censorship and the ire of certain people. They're thematically still the same at the heart of them. It's just the characters in that story engaging in that theme of love, discovery, self-identification, whatever it might be, look different.
The dangers of censoring books with diverse characters are twofold. These books allow children to see people who look like them represented in novels, helping them feel less alone. They also provide an opportunity for readers to learn about those who aren't like them, people who come from diverse backgrounds.
And then the kind of window aspect is for other people and students to be able to see outside themselves, which I think, kind of builds those bridges, creates more empathy when you can walk a mile in someone else's shoes and understand something from their perspective. That's something that you just can't verbalize in a lesson. you have to walk through a story in a book to get both of those things.
The reason why I stood against my school district's book ban was because I didn't want future African American kids to go through some of the things I went through growing up. Books that highlight our differences and teach others how to address diversity are crucial. These books shouldn't be up for debate.
Books are one of the tools that allow us to be lifelong learners. Of all the things we could be banning, these folks are banning books, but it also demonstrates just the power of books. Books aren't dangerous. At least they're not dangerous to those of us who want to create an equitable and just society.
What is one thing you guys found interesting and one thing you're still kind of questioning about in terms of book banning? Give you a couple minutes to write down, get your thoughts going.
Interesting. I thought 1,500 books banned in, I think they said 2019 or 2021. I forgot which year. In questioning, this is just more of like a question I had is I'm wondering when book banning sort of became a thing, if it's something that's always existed throughout history. Because when I think back, I know the Nazis did it during World War II, but I'm wondering when has this just always been prevalent throughout society, I guess?
No, that's a really good question. I like that. When I was working on some stuff, I looked into it and it has been, I mean, we see it more prevalent with the Nazis, but it has been for quite a while. They would do, of course, book burning, which is more, I guess, popularized in the days. And then, of course, it slowly became like, well, we'll just book ban. But around like 2018, 2019, it wasn't as high as it was in 2021. And I think we're still seeing it grow higher too. Anybody else?
I thought that they brought up a good question in the video. One of the representatives was asking like what they're going to do with the books after they ban them. And that's something I've wondered too. I know in my hometown in our public library, they had a group of an organization that was trying to get some books, not necessarily banned from our library, but they wanted them moved out of the children's section and into another section of the library. And that was the way that our library kind of found like a middle ground. They're like, well, we're not going to get rid of them, but we will move them from like children to young adult or from young adult to adult. That way they're still in the library, they're still accessible. And it was a way to like kind of appease everybody, I guess. And so I think that that was a good question is like, what are they going to do with the books if they want them totally out of the library? Like, where are they going to go?
Yeah, exactly. I really like that. That was good. I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to post yours in the chat, it's up to you. But we're gonna move on here. So we have our First Amendment rights, and yet we're banning books. I don't really quite understand if it does actually go against our First Amendment. What are y'all thoughts on that?
I think it goes against our First Amendment. And then if it is, why are people still doing it? And I think it's just like people in power, people wanting to control and have influence over others, and just, if no one stops them, they're just going to do it, regardless of whether or not it is going against our First Amendment, until someone like librarians or teachers like stand up and try to protect, titles or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that was like great because we have our own Bill of Rights, and those are incredibly important for us to keep the diversity of books and to also challenge censorship too. So definitely. Anyone else?
I know that a lot of people who propose bans are doing it on the basis of, well, it's my right to have these beliefs. It's my right to like advocate for those beliefs. And they do have that right. They're absolutely correct that that is their right. However, when they're taking these books away, they're also taking away other people's rights.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. I
like they're taking away their access and their rights to self-expression and expressing their religious beliefs and personal beliefs. And so it's like a double-edged sword almost. They're getting to protect what they believe is, moral and correct, but then other people are suffering because of it.
Yeah, okay. I love that. That actually goes into our court case. So we're going to look at a court case. We're going to do this together. So you guys should have your document. I sent out. It's a Google Docs. It's kind of lengthy, but we're going to just do one together and then we're going to do a little independent practice and then we'll come back together. So we're going to look at this court case. I also put the links in the chat as well, but I'll have the first one up for us. It's going to be Butler versus Michigan. This is from 1957. What we're going to do is we're going to summarize why the case is being held. We're going to explain how it's connected to censorship. We're going to explain what the court decided and then your own opinion on the decision. So let me go ahead and open that up and we'll read this one together. And I'll give you a few seconds to have everyone has their documents ready. Okay, cool. If you wanted, I said if you can print it, if you wanted to print it, you can print it. If not, you can type it. I know there's lines, but you can remove those lines. So, right, we're looking at the first one, which is Butler versus Michigan. Okay, so the Supreme Court in Butler versus Michigan, this is 352 U.S. 380 in 1957, unanimously held a Michigan law violated the due process clause of the 14th Amendment. The law made it illegal to sell printed material to be obscene because of its potential harmful influence on youths. So the law made it illegal to sell printed materials that could harm youth. So in section 343 of the Michigan Penal Code, it made it illegal to sell an individual a book, pamphlet, or other printed paper or other thing containing obscene language, obscene prints, pictures, figures, or descriptions tending to the corruption of the morals of youth, or any newspapers, pamphlets, or other printed paper devoted to the publication of criminal news, police reports, or criminal deeds. So Butler sold a book that corrupt youths, apparently. So Alfred E. Butler was convicted of violating two parts of the law that he sold a book to a police officer. At Butler's trial, the judge found that the book in question contained obscene, immoral, lewd, fallacious language, descriptions tending to incite minors, violate, or deprived, or immoral acts, manifestly intending to the corruption of the moral of youths. So the book he ended up selling him was Fahrenheit 451. The court said the law was overbroad and violated the First Amendment. So Justice Felix Frankfurt, who announced the decision in Butler, asserted the state had too broadly defined its power in attempting to promote the general good. He found it disturbing that in trying to protect children, the Michigan law limited grown men and women from accessing materials that may be appropriate for them. This would result in the adult population of Michigan only reading material fit for children. So Frankfurt thus concluded that the statute was not reasonably restricted to the evil it was meant to stop. And the court ruled, therefore, Michigan's law overbreadth arbitrarily curtailed freedom of the press, an individual liberty protected by the First Amendment and the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, rendering it unconstitutional. So, in your assignment, I wish I should have put it on my slideshow, but you were to summarize the case, and we're going to do this together, so someone can help with that. Explain how it's connected to censorship, what the court decided, and then your own opinion. So, what was the reason the case was being held?
Because Mr. Butler, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Butler sold a book to a police officer that at the time the state deemed immoral, inappropriate, lewd, etc. And so because he sold him that book, he was being held responsible for that.
Yeah, perfect. That's it. That's definitely it. So how is that connected to censorship?
So, I mean, the law is basically censoring books, specifically that title and others that may be harmful to youth. So it's basically the definition of censorship. They wanted it to be inaccessible.
No, it's perfect. What did the court end up deciding at the end?
That the law was encroaching people's rights. The purpose of the law was to try to protect the kids and younger adults from accessing those materials, but in doing so, like that article stated, they were preventing adults from accessing that as well.
Perfect. And then y'all's opinion on the decision.
I agree. I support what the judge ruled.
Yeah, Definitely.
I think it's ironic that the book that he sold was Fahrenheit 451
Right.
because that book is literally about censorship.
Yes, it's kind of funny.
I thought that was interesting.
Right. And then even looking at it, because at first you're reading the amendment and you're like, oh, okay, for he sold the book to a kid, and then you read later on, you're like, oh no, he sold it to a police officer. So we are gonna also look at some other cases. You're gonna do this on your own. I put the links in there and I put it's Gettysburg versus New York. We have Tinker versus Des Moines and the Board of Education versus Pico. So if you want to each do one and then we can share out together. I'm gonna say about 10 minutes and then we can come back and talk.
We're just gonna do one each.
Yeah, you can do one each, because I think that's all the time we really have, and then we
Yeah.
can just share our answers.
I'll do the first one.
Okay.
All right, I'll do the Tinker one.
And then I guess Rebecca will be doing the last one. I should probably tell her. And
Yeah, I was gonna say you might wanna.
oh, I can. Okay, I put a little 10-minute timer. It has lo-fi. If you don't like it, you can always like mute your computer and stuff, and then we'll come back and talk. Y'all need any help too? I'm here. Yeah, we're gonna share out. We're gonna share out 7 minutes. If you need more time, I can give you more time. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Just a reminder, we are summarizing. We're looking at why it's connected to censorship, what the court decided, and then your own opinion. We have about 4 more minutes left. I don't know if you need a little more time. Definitely talk about it together. How are we doing? We're about 3 minutes in or left. Good. Done. Oh, perfect. Nice done. Oh. Does it work now, Rebecca? Yeah? Okay, perfect. All right, y'all have about 2 more minutes left. Start to wrap everything up. And just let me know when y'all are finished. less than a minute left. Actually, it's done. I don't know where you're at, Rebecca. And it's okay. It's all right. No worries. We had technical issues. So we're gonna go ahead and discuss a little bit. Ashley, you had the first one, which is Ginsburg versus New York.
Yes. Okay. So let me get my page back up. So this is a case that happened in 1968. There was a gentleman named Sam Ginsburg, and him and his wife operated a store in New York, where they had a lunch counter, and then they sold like stationery and magazines. And in October of 1965, a teenage boy who was 16 at the time went in to purchase some copies of magazines. And again, later that month, he came back in and purchased more copies of magazines. And these magazines had like nude pictures in it, and so maybe some sexually explicit content in it. And so he got arrested for that, for providing like lewd and sexually explicit content to a minor. And they found that he was guilty. He was tried without a jury. And the main discussion around the case is there was a New York penal law that specified prohibiting selling sexually explicit content to minors, whether that be images or like written literature, and that they were harmful. And so the main question around this case was it unconstitutional? Did it violate the First and 14th Amendments? But he was found guilty. It says that it was a 6-3 decision. And so 6 out of the 3 said that, yeah, he violated these laws. And so he was found guilty on that.
Okay. Maddie, you had Tinker versus Des Moines?
Yes. So in this case, at a school, there's a group of teens that attended the school that decided to protest the Vietnam War by wearing black armbands to school through the month of December. And the school, fearing that something negative may come from this, created a rule that you cannot wear any of these black armbands, and refusal to remove them would result in suspension. And so a family known as the Tinkers, their children did refuse, and so they did not go to school. And the family then sued over the right to expression. And so it eventually reached the Supreme Court, where they did rule in the favor of the Tinkers. 7-2, the family won, because they decided that students do not lose their right to the First Amendment when they go to school. They said that unless the actions would have to materially and substantially interfere with the school's ability to operate. But since it was a silent protest and the students were simply wearing something, they did not think that it interfered with the school's ability to do their job at all. And so I agree with the ruling, because I believe that minors deserve rights. Just because you're not 18 doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to express yourself or have free speech or protest. And so I supported their decision.
Yeah, it's great. We would have talked about Board of Education and PICO, but we're going to kind of move on a little bit. So to wrap everything up, we shared a little bit about the court cases, right? A lot of it is also different type of censorship. It's censorship in even what we wear, that can hinder our First Amendment rights. So you learned that our First Amendment is about our freedoms. It's a freedom of speech. It's the freedom of press, right? And we learned that, librarians must challenge the censorship. If something is going to come up and people are like, I don't like this book, that we must look into that and see why we should take this book out, or not have our books in all the libraries and such forth, right? And you know, we know some of these bans have even gone to court. So, speaking of banned books, this is just a list of books that are in our American Library Association top 10 at the moment that you can look into more. There's Genderqueer, it's a memoir, All Boys Aren't Blue, This Book is Gay, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Flamer, The Bluest Eye, Meet Earl and the Dying Girl, Tricks, Sold. There's so much more. So you could choose any of these as part of your extension to look into those banned books. You can make flyers on Canva if you want to be more creative. Maybe you can even draw it out to see why we should have this book. If you're more towards writing, you can do an argumentative paragraph on why this book shouldn't be banned. And that's just a little extra thing that you want to come in. We have some of those books too in the library that we carry. Some of them we don't carry because depending on the library that we're in, like middle school libraries probably won't carry The Perks of Being a Wallflower or Meet Earl and the Dying Girl, but high school libraries will. So it just depends, and you can look into that. I wanted to let you know these are some references I had used for our PowerPoint, and if you have any questions. Nobody has any questions? Okay, well, thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoyed our lesson today. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. And yes, go ahead and stop recording.